But from your perspective, when do you see that transition? When do you know that someone's got that innate skill? When you can see that they've got something that makes them a little bit better than the fella or the young gal next to them. When do you transition them?
So we'll talk about those transitions now. So, and again, starting from the ground up, right from the novice level. When parents come with their kids to the gym, one of the first questions I'll ask them, and I got this from my two mentors, Tom Hennessy from Blue Water Boxing Club and Charlie Stewart from Windsor Amateur Boxing Club. When the kids come in, I'll ask the kids and the parents, like, what exactly do you want to do? Do you want to be a boxer, or do you want to actually compete? Well, I'll ask them that first. I'll let them. They'll hit the bag. They'll kind of see if they have talent to be a competitor to begin with. But reason why I ask that question is because, and this is kind of where the real coaching comes in. You have to treat people differently. Let me carefully explain myself. There's a difference between boxers and competitive boxers. The boxers are the ones that come to the gym and they still train hard every day. They're not going to be competing, but they're still, work out every day alongside the competitors, but they won't be competing. And then obviously the competitors are the ones that are actually competing. So the attitude towards the boxers is a little more light, because the consequences of them messing up is not that much. So if I'll make sure they're having more fun while they're participating. The ones that are competing, it's not really that fun for you, because you have to make sure that this is done properly. In this sport, you can be seriously hurt if you're not careful. So we have to make sure you're extra careful. So when there's no joking around, it's not just do it somewhat like that. You have to do it exactly properly. Defense even more than offense. So the attitude is different between the boxers and competitive boxers at the novice level. And that's making the transition from novice to open class is the next step. The next step, because when you're novice, you're really only competing against people that aren't really, they're just kind of trying it out. Most novices that just want to have one fight just to say they did it. So a lot of undefeated novices get a false sense of confidence that their success will continue into the open class when they do open up there. And again, this is where the real coaching comes in to explain to people that you have to be serious. Now, the next one, the transition from open class to provincial level. This is where you kind of have to, but you have to explain to, depending how old they are, if they're late teens, you can speak to them. If they're speaking to them directly, if they're 12, 13 years old, you want to make sure that the parents are involved, because the parents are going to be driving them to the gym every day. But attendance has to be mandatory like work. And this is how boxing can help you later on in life. We talked about how boxing can help you in school, but also later on when you have a job. The teenagers don't realize this they don't care about having it, but later on in life, they come back and realize this. But the discipline of attendance every day. Again, you can be seriously hurt if you're not careful. So discipline every single day. You can only miss, obviously if you're seriously sick or a death in the family, but attendance is mandatory if you're going to make that next step from open class to the provincial level. Did you want me to expand any more on that, or keep going?
I'm listening and learning.
The next step from provincial level to national level is basically the same thing, because if you're getting ready for provincials, even if it's your first year, if you so happen to win in your first year, the nationals is only going to be a couple months after that. So it kind of blends in together. But the next step after that of the focus, and this is where you're making more of the difference between not just the physical part of boxing, but more of the mental part, because the higher level you step in competition, the more serious the consequences are. And so the number one thing is sparring. When you're getting ready for provincials and nationals, you have to find sparring that people that are better than you. And as a coach, you have to be able to control that. You're not just throwing you're not novice, but open class novice, open class boxer. You don't just want to throw them into the wolves and see if they drown or swim. you kind of want to ease them into that transition, because that's the part where a lot of the participation drops off. I just spoke to you briefly before about the false sense of confidence that a lot of undefeated novices get. And then they get to open class and get that rude awakening and realize, whoa, it's a whole different ballgame when you're fighting the top guys in the province, not even talking about the country yet. So we're at the provincial to national level. Sparring, you have to be on point. You don't have to, and there's no winning or losing in sparring, but you have to be competitive in that sparring. If they're putting you at that level with people that are better than you, it can't be at a point where, and again, this is where the two coaches have to be synchronized and knowing how to work with each other. The boxer that's better can turn it up a little bit, but not too much to just stop the other person, because it is sparring for learning. So you got to learn how to turn up the heat without making it too hot, for a lack of a better term to use there.
Yes.
And then the next transition from national level to international level. Again, that's more mental. The physical part, your attendance has to be on point. Your sparring has to be on point. And this is to where the level where you have to be at a level where you can, again, sparring, one of the number one things, you have to be at a level where you can spar people that aren't as good as you and still learn. Boxing education, little things like, I'll have one of the better boxers, they're only allowed to use their left hand, or even just a jab, depending how good they are. They can only use their jab. And I'll have one of the novice boxers at the same weight, novice boxer, I'll tell them, you can go all out. Like, you can try to knock them out if you can. Like, they know this. And the more experienced boxers, they know they have the confidence. They know they're at that level that they're not worried about. Their defense is on point, and it makes it a challenge for them. It's not a personal thing. When they hear me talk to the other boxer about going after them and trying to take his head off, they don't take it personally. They know it's for so they're not going to get mad and go hard too. So again, that's you have to be synchronized with your boxer mentally to understand them, to know that, because there's some boxers that are hard-headed and go hard in sparring, and well, that's not tolerated in my gym. You're out of here if you continue like that. But anyway, sorry, I'm just babbling on. Do you have any questions for me or anything during this?
No, I am curious about these transition points and how they're identified by not just coaches, but at what point do then management teams get involved, agents? At what point do the professional fighters or semi-professional fighters recognize, wow, I've got a chance at this. I'm actually pretty good.
Yeah. And that's right now. It's funny that you brought that up. Right now, when you're going from a national level, like if you won nationals 2-3 times in a row, it's pretty solidified. You're one of you are the best in your country in your weight class. Now the next step is international competition. And when it comes to competing in your country, if you're at an international level competition, you should not be losing to anybody in your country at any like random club show. That should not be like that. It might be a competitive match. Sorry, I shouldn't say you should go undefeated. You're going to lose sometimes, but if it is, it's only by like a close split decision. If you're multiple time national champion and you're competing at the international level now, if you have random club shows in your own country, it should not be like close matches for you. You should be clearly winning those. Now, when it comes to your competition at the international level, you need to at least show that you're competitive, and it starts with the lower level international competitions. For example, like the Pan Am Games and the Commonwealth Games, where some of the best countries are there, but not all the best countries are there. So that's a good chance for you to get your feet wet at the highest level, but not exactly at the highest level. So that's the next step there. So you want to do your best to, again, your sparring has to be on point, attendance has to be on point, your weight has to be on point. I try to tell all my boxers, try not to get over 10 pounds. There's no reason for you to get over like 10 pounds over your fighting weight, especially as an amateur. There's no contracts. You don't know, you can get a call for a match anytime. So if anything more than double digits, when you start your training camp, you're not even learning boxing. You're just losing weight. You might as well just hire a strength and conditioning coach. You don't even need a boxing coach. Some people say they use the boxing to get in shape, but and that's okay. But if that's the case, your skills are not improving. You're just staying the same, as opposed to making sure that you're somewhat close to your weight. That way, when you start your actually training camp, you're down to your weight, and then you can actually focus on improving your skills, not just I'm sure you've heard the term before. Guys have a fat camp, not a training camp, but a fat camp, because they have to lose so much weight to and that affects your performance too. So at the international level competition, at international level, that's what it is. You want to do your best to try to at least medal at the Commonwealth Games or the Pan Am Games. The next transition from there, from international competition, is to actually medaling at the Olympics or the World Championships. And in my 15 years, I got very lucky to be an assistant coach. I always got to tell people that, because I don't want people to think that I'm taking credit for training them. I was just the assistant coach to watch how they were made. To two of the most accomplished amateur boxers in Canadian boxing history, Adam Troopers and Mary Spencer. Both won multiple national championships. Both medaled at world championships. Mary was the first female that won 3 times world championships, and both competed at the Olympics. So I was lucky to watch to see how they got to train to get to that level. And man, it's all mental. It's not all mental. Again, it's still physical, but you just have to make sure that you're on point. Now, the transition into the pro level. Me personally, I haven't had any professional boxers yet. So everything that I'm saying right now is just from my observation of having many coaching friends, and boxers that have turned professional, and some of the things that I've seen them do, and they've told me that have worked for them, and some of the things that didn't work out turn out so well for them. So from my observation, the number one thing, or it shouldn't be number one thing, but one of the main things is controlling your weight. Controlling your weight. At the amateur level, and again, this depends on what age that you're turning pro. If you're still in your early 20s, eventually, just naturally, just from getting older, you're going to be moving up in weight classes. So not that you don't necessarily have to watch your weight so much, but you're going to be moving up anyway. If you're already 25, 26 years old and you're just turning pro now, you have to make sure your discipline with your nutrition is good, because you want to be, when you're closer to 30, it's harder for you to fluctuate in weight up and down and still perform good. It's harder to do that. So, at the amateur level, when you're young, I try to tell people, try to stay no more than 10 pounds. At the pro level, you got weight months in between fights. So of course you have a little bit of fun, but try not to get more than 15, because again, when you do get ready for your training camp, you don't want to just focus on losing weight. You want to actually focus on improving your skills. And so that's one of the main things. And then, there's a lot more complications when it comes to the finances, because, it depends on the promoters and, whatever contracts you sign. So the only thing I could say is making sure that you have the right people around you, right, before you turn pro. So sorry, and let me rewind that. If you're at the international level competition as far as boxing, and you're qualifying for Worlds and Olympics, most likely you're going to have some businesses that want to come and sponsor you, to help you out with your training. So that's a good thing. So that's where it starts, at that level. Just again, making sure that the people around you are people that you can trust, and whether it's your finances or taking care of any other stuff outside of boxing, so that you can focus just on the boxing part. Because if you're trying to train twice a day, getting ready for a big match, and you're taking care of 10 other things outside the sport, if your mind is not into it, again, the consequences of not being into it are very good. In other sports, you can just call a timeout and take a break. Boxing, there's no timeout. So the consequences are severe. So you want to make sure that you're on point before you get to that level. Any questions so far?
No, I was going to say though that Randy, our second